All right, how's everybody doing? This is Mr. Abdullah of the All Education Official podcast. Listen, this is a revamp of my original podcast, Real Life Critics. I've decided to find my niche and focus on that which I've been dealing with for about, I want to say 21, 22 years. And that's been education. I've been in the educational field for that period of time. I got into education around 2001, and I'm still actively working in that. I'm currently an educator on the Eastern Seaboard. So I want everybody to know that I'm here as a current educator and as an individual that I believe you need that I did not have. I call myself the Mr. Abdullah that I wish I had. And I'd like to say thank you and welcome to my first official podcast as all things education. Um, I am here today, here to give you educational information, and I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of a real educator, not theoretical. I am currently in the public education system. I have always worked in public education, so I am directly in the trenches with that which helps, harms our children. I like to focus primarily on children from K to 12. And in all transparency, I've only worked in urban education, so my primary focal point will be children that identify as Black and Latino, for those have been my only two populations that I've worked extensively with. But I truly believe that all education could be considered good education and could be applied across the board. My first topic of today and of my first broadcast actually will be the 10 things that should be discussed and taught in public education but are not. Now, the reason why I'm giving this information is because I truly believe that you may want to jot down some notes, take things into consideration. I truly believe that you already know this, but sometimes you need to be retooled, reinvigorated, and reinvited to the conversation so that if you are an active parent, if you have the ear of your principal, superintendent, assistant superintendent, chancellor, whichever governing body that heads up your educational system, if you have access, these are things that you may want to discuss with them and say, hey, I think my child would benefit from these as an educational institution. So let's get started, okay? First things first, home economics. Now, I was born in the 70s where when I started school, home economics was actually a requirement to graduate. That's where you learn cooking, cleaning, ironing, food preparation, balancing your checkbook. A lot of you guys may not remember checkbooks if you're under the age of 30, but if you're 40 plus, you remember checkbooks and you probably got one stashed away in your bag somewhere. But writing checks is still it's a dying art, but not the preparation of your finances. Cooking and cleaning, we already know the necessity for that, but how many times have I seen young men and women come to school just a wrinkled mess? And I'm saying, why didn't you iron your clothes? I don't know how to iron. I'm thinking, holy moly. So what I did for the students at my particular institution, I brought an ironing board in, I brought an iron and some starch. I said, we're going to get these sessions together. So I took upon myself to teach a group of young men how to iron. And it sounds so simplistic, but it's so necessary. Second thing, income tax preparation. I think many of us who were not taught this skill have taken the taxation process for granted. Some of us owe taxes because of it. Some of us don't even figure it into our daily life. Only thing we know is that they take too much damn taxes out of our money. But after that, we need to understand how to prepare those taxes. What's a 1040? What's an LLC? What's an S corp? We need to teach our children these things so that they can be viable in the market. They need to know what it is exactly needs to help them financially and how the government can help or hurt them. So that's a definite necessity. Income tax preparation. Number 3, basic auto mechanics. Now people are saying, well, nowadays it's so easy, it's so cheap. Well, it may be, but I'm sorry, but nothing beats free. So we're talking about oil changes. I remember one of my first cars, I had a 1988, was it a Chevy Sonoma? GMC Sonoma. It was a pickup. And I learned how to change my oil. And because I drove a lot, I was in a state in which I would drive around all the time, a lot of highways. And I learned how to change my oil. And I'm going to tell you, as a young man with a very small budget, had a lot of responsibilities, I was able to change my oil for about $8 a pop. You're talking about four quarts of oil for about 99 cents a quart. I got the filter for about what, $10 to $12, and I was good to go. So that was a definite must. Not to mention, when you start talking about changing tires, inevitably you will have a flat tire. And it just incenses me when I see a man on the side of the road waiting for someone to change his tire. I get it, you got the plan. I get it, you got the money to do it. But wouldn't it be so much better if not only you knew how to do it, but you can teach your children? And if you are unfortunate enough or fortunate enough, I guess it depends on your circumstances, to be able to have or not have someone in your home to teach you, it is the duty of the school system to prepare you for life. So why not teach our children that? Oil changes, tire changes, changing the air filter, changing your, just changing things like, let me see. What do we got? Why am I drawing a blank here? Oh, you know what? I just thought about it. Cleaning the inside and outside of your car. Why does that matter? Keeping your car clean. All right. Checking the tire pressure. Make sure all your fluids are up to specs. We're talking about windshield wiper fluid, antifreeze, all those things. These are basic mechanical things that not only will save you money, but will save the life of the car and extend it. So that's another thing. Number 3, basic auto mechanic. Number 4, resume prep and interviewing. Now, I do recognize that we're in a digital age where, you're applying online, you're not going out pounding the pavement asking for applications, but guess what? You still have to interview. So once we get through with all of the applications and signing in, you're gonna need to know how to interview. Do you know how to present to people? Do people like you? Are you a likable person? And oftentimes our children are so busy focused on what they believe they want. They don't get focused on the fact that someone has to rank and judge them. And that all happens during the course of the interview. A lot of times I would tell people I'm never worried about getting a job if I can get the interview because I have great personality, great people skills. But some people, they struggle in those areas. They're very technical. They know the work, but they do not know how to present themselves. And that is something that should be taught to our young men and women. I would say that's number 4. Number 5, grooming, barbering, hairstyling. I cannot imagine how much money I saved and friends of mine saved in college and in high school just from learning how to cut hair. Young ladies learning how to do their hair. We're talking about braiding. I don't know, young ladies. I don't know what they're doing nowadays. I know nowadays it's just throwing on a wig, I guess. So I'm not sure if this really applies to the young ladies. I would assume it does, but I know braiding's still a thing. But for young men, barbering, lining up your head, lining up your beard if you have facial hair, keeping yourself groomed and neat, because a neat and groomed young man speaks volumes to the individual in which he meets. So I would say definitely grooming, barbering, hairstyle for number 5. Number 6, the biology of men and women. I did some research. I found that only, I think 16 to 17 states require sexual education. And the sad part about that is that since you can't talk about sex education, you can talk about the biology of men and women so that they are aware of the blessings and or negative consequences of premarital sex, all types of sexual interactions. So they need to know what happens to their body and why it's happening. And we're sending our children out here unprepared, only to learn about sexual education from music, movies, and their friends. And that is a sin and a shame. So I definitely am a proponent for the biology of men and women. Number 7, gardening and horticulture. We are living in an ever-changing society where GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are prevalent in our food sources and foodstuffs. And I think that it's important, it would behoove us to be able to teach our children that growing your own food gets you in tune with the food, gets you in touch with the ingredients that you're utilizing for your food. also gives you a connection to the earth and lets you understand life, because you are actually helping to bring forth life which will help sustain you as a human being. I definitely believe in community gardens. I believe that all schools should have one. I believe that programs should be at every school. So, number seven, gardening and horticulture. Not to mention, and if we need to be honest, the cannabis industry is going to be reaching federal legislation, and it will be at some point considered fully legal throughout the nation. And it's an opportunity for those who are truly interested in growing to make a lucrative buck, make some money. I think that's very, very, very important. So, number seven, gardening and horticulture. Number eight, financial literacy. Checks and balances. How much you got in versus how much you put out. Assets versus liabilities. I know that when I was growing up, my mother would sit me down once a month, and she would, she was old school, so she would cash her check, and she would lay out the money and put the money in separate envelopes: one marked gas, one marked electric, the mortgage, groceries, all, a gas money for the car. I mean, she was very meticulous, and she made me sit down there and made me understand the importance of balancing a budget, and how sometimes you got to have a little extra set aside in the case of an emergency. So that's where the savings accounts came in. So I would definitely say financial literacy is important, and that is the best way to strengthen a community, is through financial institutions. Teach them about banking, credit unions. All those things are necessary. Our community is in dire straits, and we need to be mindful that if we don't teach our children that money is important, and what's more important is how you spend it and what you do or do not spend it on, I think that we will definitely make some positive inroads for the next generation. Next, for number nine, about trades. I come from an era where we were told, just go to college, get you a good degree, get you a good job. But now, college is now being seen as a joke. It's being seen as a hustle. I don't know if you know, look around your city or your state. These universities are renovating at an exponential rate. Why is that? Because they're competing for customers. Their students are customers, and they're trying to help everyone see that we have the best bang for your buck. And guess what happens when they do all that renovation? It translates into higher tuition. So what used to be approximately $10,000 a year is now ballooned to $40,000 to $50,000 a year for education. So you're looking at people coming out owing $100,000+ for education for a job that pays 40,000. That's silly, unless you are going into a STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. If you're not going into STEM, if you're not going into law, if you're not going into the medical fields, college sometimes is purely a joke. So I think that we need to really cater to all realms of occupation, and the trades are amazing. My uncle was a plumber, and he would take me in the summers, and I'm telling you, when I was 16, I was making 15 bucks an hour. You're talking about in the 80s, just working alongside him. I mean, he was doing monster projects. He was making great money. Did not go to college, but he was a fully licensed master plumber. We should look at all the trades: plumbing, masonry, electrical work, HVAC. These are wonderful things. These are wonderful jobs where people can make a great living, can become entrepreneurs. And I think that we need to start preparing our children for more than just the college classroom. Teach them that these trades help our world uh, maintain as it has been thus far. How far would you go without a toilet? How far would you go without a kitchen sink? I don't think you'd go too far. These things are necessary. And also, going back to, I would say, probably point number three, auto mechanics. That is a trade. People are always driving. You're going to have to get those certifications. They have to have their cars repaired. You know what that means? It's up to you to learn it. And if you learn it, it's a gold mine. And finally, number 10, stocks and bonds. I have tried to get into stocks and bonds over the last, I want to say, maybe 10 to 15 years. And I think I've mastered uh, the skill of buying portions of stock through certain apps like Stash and Acorn. public, and these platforms are great because you can invest a little and still get some good returns. You can see your money grow slowly over time. And I think our youngsters, our youth, need to know these things because there's so much money to be made in the stock market. And if an individual is truly inclined and they decide that they get bitten by the bug, they could be a trader. I mean, it's so many different avenues, but the key to it is to understand that it is an avenue. So that's my list. I got those top 10 things that need to be taught in schools, public education in particular. I would say thank you for those who understand, those who do not realize that it's always a learning process. Once again, this is Mr. Abdullah with the All Things Education podcast official. Thank you. God bless and good night.